Welcome everyone to another episode of Runners Roundtable, where in season 4, I'm interviewing the women who inspire me and who inspire you all as well, who are doing what they can to change the running industry, change the face of running, how we receive running. And today I am so incredibly excited and just grateful. And I told you in an email, I shot my shot. I don't even know how to say it, but I just totally sent an email thinking there's no way this person is ever going to want to talk to me and be on the podcast. And you said yes. So I'm so excited to have Latoya Shauntay Snell here talking to me. I just want to tell you a quick story of how I found you. And I think I was training for the Chicago 2021 marathon, and one of my friends sent me your post, and it was a kind of a get ready with me post, but you had the most exquisite earrings on. And I said, I need to follow this person because earrings, like it wasn't just, no. I feel like they had someone's face on them. I don't even know. I don't even know what it was. But you went through the outfit. I mean, I don't want to say it was a production, but it was a production.
It's a production.
It was one of those things that when I saw that, and then you shared your run and what you did and everything about it, and you were just so, and I'm going to curse because I know you curse and I love to curse as well. But you were just so like, I don't give a fuck. This is who I am. This is what I look like. I look good. And you're going to see that I look good moving my body. And that for me, after that really changed my approach to earrings when I run. And it's so silly. But now when I run, I'm like, all right, can I wear the hoops? Absolutely, I can wear the hoops. Can I wear the beads? Sure, I can wear the beads. And I even had someone mention it recently to me. And I didn't know this, that, or another friend, it was the same friend, Marion, if you're listening to this, shout out to you, where she's like, I have running earrings. And I'm like, wait, what? You don't just wear whatever earrings? Like I wear whatever earrings make me feel cute. Right. So that's how I found you. And I have followed you since. And I just so appreciate, again, the taking up space in running, particularly in a running space that is so dominated by paces, by appearances, by lots of gatekeeping. I love this sport. Oh boy. I love this sport, and I think it's wonderful. And part of why I have this podcast is so that we can talk about how we can make the sport better. But there's so much gatekeeping, and you talk about it all, again, so unapologetically. You're like, this is me. I'm taking up space. Here I am. So now I'm going to kind of turn it around to you and just ask you to introduce yourself to us. You wear many hats. So introduce yourself to us and let us know how you got into running and how you even got to the mental space where you are right now, where you are able to take up space so boldly. Because I don't even know, it's like unapologetic, but you're also like, I'm here. Like I can take up space just as much as you can. And you own calling yourself a runner, which is something that so many people, particularly women, struggle with.
Yes. Man. Oh man. That was awesome. For one, like I feel, I'm like, oh, who is this girl? I want to know her. Well, so for anyone who's just hearing my voice for the first time, my name is Latoya Shauntay Snell. I am presently 38 years old. Yes, I'm about to hit the 40s. And I've noticed this is not something that people usually get excited about, but I am actually looking forward to it. I am excited about it. I celebrated the same way that my dad did. He was the first person that I ever met and knew. I mean, well, I hope I didn't meet him, I mean, he is my dad, but he's been gone for about 14 years now. And since he's been gone, I always remind myself that it is a gift to get old. It is a gift to get older, and embrace all the grays and all the things that people usually tell you to hide. I love the idea that I'm going to be entering my 40s, and it just makes me have less of a filter, I give less of a damn. And that's how I like to show up in this world. So like as far as like, how I started this journey, um, I just remember dropping out of high school for 7 gym credits, ironically. Out of all things, you can't make this shit up. My real story is my real deal is that I like to look at myself as an ordinary person who like to do extraordinary things. And the thing about it is that I didn't always have that nurtured or instilled in me. My dad had a very profane, very, 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 very colorful mouth, just like me. But this multiply it times 10. And the things that I realized in hindsight is he taught me in his own weird, you know, super black parent way and he used to say, Kettle. He used to call me Kettle, because I'm loud. And he was like, Kettle, the thing about men and women that differs is that we don't ask for permission even when we're wrong. And this was one of like this was like a crazy piece of advice that he gave me. And he's like, stop asking for permission to be yourself.
Mhm.
And these were the things that he would say, but this was a lot of more profanity mixed in there. Definitely more motherfuckers thrown in there. I always say that Samuel Jackson is definitely an uncle to our family because it's like that word did not escape his mouth. It just could not be one day that went by that didn't escape his mouth. Even down to the last day that I've actually saw him close his eyes, that word still came out. And, I love him for that because he's always been himself. And with his own hardships, he owned it. I'm a product of the 80s, and during that period, the crack epidemic was hard. And even with it, I never like he was so extraordinary to me in his own skin that it passively, even with all of the hiccups that we've experienced together, it taught me how to show up in this world. And, don't get me wrong, I love my mom. I adore my mom. My mom is much more of the opposite, though, of me when it comes down to how we speak. My mom, you got to gradually kind of like get her there to kind of be that loud. Me, I just come out the gate. Hey, how you doing? And what's your name? And that's always been my energy. And my parents did remind me that it is okay to be yourself. But there was also that flip side of do as I say, not as I do. So talk loud, just not in front of me, you know, um, not towards me, and I've learned how to redefine that voice here in the running community. When I came into this space, I didn't look at myself as a runner. I didn't view myself as a runner. I started in my mid 20s, and it was for all of the cliche things that we hear that particularly women and non-binary people are sold. People in marginalized community, honestly, I want to go further and say people in marginalized communities are sold to be someone else. And what the narrative that I was sold was that when I lose weight, I'll become this new mythical creature that people are going to admire and find palatable, and most importantly, wouldn't be intimidated by. Now, one of the things that worried me, and still at times I can get tripped up off of, is being labeled with the term angry Black woman. It's something I've heard my entire life. And this really came from having parents who always told me to be myself. But when I would walk into different spaces outside of my home, people would, it was like almost like they had to check me to tell me, don't show up like that. Like, I know that that's, innate in you, but you can't show up like that. So people conveniently would pick and choose what parts of me was palatable, what part of me was okay. When can we pull that tool out of her toolbox? And over the years, I started to lose my identity. I lost my identity the first time when I went to high school. When I was in junior high school, I think I had a stronger sense of self before I went to high school. That middle school years, I went in there and I was just like, I'm okay with being smart. I was the kid that was really, really, I was painfully close to being valedictorian and salutatorian. And I missed it by like really, like I think it was like behavior because I was always a goof troop. And I'm always saying something to make somebody laugh. And I think I might have missed it off of behavior alone because I made up this weird name for my teacher. And I think I called her Miss Gas Ass instead of Miss Gaskins. I used to call my other teacher Miss Combat, and her name was Cumberbatch. They're both amazing teachers. And if it was not for those two educators, I don't know if I would have made it this far. So sometimes the teachers that we give the hardest way to go are the ones who are like really the ones that we probably need to listen to and hold on to just a bit more. So, kind of fast forwarding, like, I get into junior high school and I was the kid that was like, yeah, I'm intelligent, but I'll kick your ass. I didn't like bullying. I didn't like shaming. It's before all we came up with all these terms. Like I was just like, I didn't hear about body shaming or, body positivity. I didn't know anything about no activist movement. I just knew about humanity, and humanity made sense to me. It's a matter of you treat people how the way that you want to be treated and times 10, so, and it's not with the incentive of, I'm going to get this paid back to me. It's just more like, this is what makes me feel good. This is what makes me tingle inside, and I just hope that somebody will be kind enough to me in return. So I was that person. I was that person that was just like, yeah, I'll make jokes, but don't come up to my friends or come up to me the wrong way, or even do it to a stranger in the street and I'm there. But that also leads you into a path where when I entered in high school, I got known for that reputation. I went to Boys and Girls High School. It's, I believe, it is the 17th largest high school in the United States, at least at the time when I went there. And this school was not suited to hold that many kids inside of it compared to the ratio. So I drowned really quickly. And I can see that in hindsight that I needed a smaller environment to be able to own my voice. And instead, when I had educators who did not respect that, I was kind of, I was the art type, I was the artist type where, I didn't exactly blend in with the cool kids. I can walk in those circles, but I didn't necessarily want to be there for too long. And I didn't have educators who wanted to take time to say, you don't have to show a part of yourself. You can be your entire unadulterated, unscripted self. You don't have to tame yourself here. And the more that the years went by, I just found myself not wanting to attend. So I was the kid who cut school, smoked weed, and got friends to essentially teach me the schoolwork. I would become friends with people for like about 2 weeks and would really have wholehearted, like real friendships, like people who I still know to this day. They would teach me this stuff while in the middle of me smoking a blunt. And it would be like, why don't you just go to school? And I'm just like, no, I don't think so. And I realize now it was because I felt overwhelmed by so many people, so many personalities, so many layers. And then it was just so many tests and hoops that I had to go through. Somebody thinks that, oh, she thinks that she's better than everybody. It wasn't celebrated to be smart without getting your ass kicked. It was like they had to be hand in hand. And I just never fit into these boxes. Like, it wasn't like she's a nerd and we embrace her. Okay, check. No, it was more like she's intelligent, but she has a snarky mouth. So that's going to get her into a bunch of fights. And she doesn't like people getting bullied. So that's going to get her into a bunch of fights. She's really quick. So she's going to get into a lot of fights. And at the time, of my body size, at the time in the 90s, early 2000s, it was more celebrated to have the Coca-Cola bottle shape, the Nia Long body, at least here in, Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And I was not that. I had a big head, small body. I was 98 pounds, 5'3.5". And, that was like a soundtrack to getting your ass kicked on its own. And I just constantly found myself fighting people, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't like the way that this feels. So I just found it easier to just cut school. And thankfully, I attended enough days to be able to meet my husband. My husband and I met in a high school cafeteria, and the story kind of wrote itself from there. And I think that he knew in the back of his heart, like, I'm gonna have me a luscious plus size woman. So let me start giving her these Welch's from grapefruit drinks in the cafeteria right now. Like he had me ready. He had my back the entire time. But it eventually, like, it was like I look at my own story and I wish that I can hug my 16-year-old self. And that's what I've taken into this running community, is not necessarily trying to be a big mouth, just wanting to, share her, amplify her own story. I'm just like, here's my story. This is how I show up in the world. And I'm hoping that with showing my story, whether it's through visual form or written form or anything in between, that this artist's background will translate into showing people that I'm telling you more than the story about running. I just want you to just show up in life being yourself. And if it comes with being awkward, missteps, and then you learning along the way and owning up to it, show up as that. Entering this space was just, I've had so many ups and downs. And like, I know that I don't know where this podcast is going to go, if it's going to go in visual form or if it's going to go in physical form. But if it's in visual form, this is me. And hopefully this actually shows up somewhat on here. First year into the space, there was a tiny picture, and my camera is pretty crappy right now because of the light that's reflecting against it. But I have the cringy before and after pictures. First year into this space, I took that whole mindset of, if I lose weight, I'll reclaim my life. And this was after graduating culinary school. I was able to speak for my graduating class. I started, I was on my road to thriving in the culinary industry. I was already cooking from home after I lost my job during 2008. That moment was when everybody lost their jobs, because even then, when I left high school and I got my GED, I was like, well, maybe I can get my redemption in college. And then I couldn't afford it. I had financial aid, but then they looked at it as, even though I moved out of my house, because my dad and he's my biggest superhero, but he was the person that scared me the most. We had fistfights. I've literally gone from getting popped to, dare I say that it was child abuse. At times, we went to spaces where the person that was giving me the best advice, I was calling him out on his hypocrisy, and he didn't like being called out in his own house. I endured physical violence, and I think the verbal was probably more that got to me more than anything, because I can take a punch. I could take a punch, and it's not a great thing, but I could take a punch. But words always had a way of speaking into me or speaking at me in an aggressive way, in the way that that if you said the right thing at the right time with the right cadence, from the right people, that was a make or break. And my dad, he sat real high. He sat like highest on that pedestal of people who I didn't want to make me feel low. And there were days where he would say, he's like, you're so smart, you're so fucking stupid, and it hurt. So when I saw, that, he went from popping me with a belt to belt buckle to saying that, pretty much, I think he was calling me out then for my queerness that I was not ready to come out with. And he said, since you think you're a little boy, knuckle up. And that was probably the last time I remember actually having a hand pop. And after that, we fought, even when this man had a stroke, this man still packed a punch. Like you didn't want to square up against him. Adults didn't want to square up against him. Why would me at right. 12 to 14, as a developing girl, want to square up against my dad? And eventually, I ended up moving into my husband's house when I was like 16 and a half years old. And I thank my mom-in-law for looking at us beyond the probably the horny teenage years. Thank God that she was able to look past that and say, okay, I'm separating you guys because I know y'all doing stuff y'all ain't supposed to be doing. But she saw the severity of the situation. And I love my mama. But when you are in an abusive situation, it's hard to see past it. And I just held on to this anger with my mom of, why couldn't you just let him go? Like, I love dad. And I know that you love dad. And I knew my sister loved him because he has these charismatic qualities that, and I realized in hindsight that there just wasn't enough conversation about what drug use do to the individual, as well as what it does to the family dynamic and everybody that's around. There's times where I just wish I can pull my dad back from the grave, give him a hug and tell him that I forgive him. And in addition, to say to myself, every day I'm fighting to tell myself I forgive myself. I felt like I had left my family behind. When I was able to come to my husband's house and stay here, I was just like, oh, this is how a normal household operates. They got into an argument in front of me, and all I kept thinking is, oh, something's going to fly across the room. And they literally just went into separate rooms. My husband was angry and my mom-in-law were angry. And I was just like, and about, I say sorry, not sorry in advance, but I was just like, what kind of white household shit is this? Like, it just felt very sitcom-y.
It was a show.
It was a show.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I was like, oh, am I the asshole in this? Yes, you are. Because it's just like, if your norm has always shown you chaos, then normalcy feels like a show. And I'm just like, so people actually talk out their problems. They don't just knuckle up, like, like, I'm not saying every night in my house was like that, that's the way that it went down. But I realized that I grew up in that chaos so much that I couldn't see what normal felt like. There were certain things that I can naturally say, even to this day. I can tell you about pooping on myself at mile 4. But if you ask me simple things like, why do you have a hard time hugging people that you hardcore know and feel comfortable hugging strangers? That's a different type of TED talk. I think
a different attachment, right?
Yeah,
Like I just want to say, I just want to appreciate you. And like, before you keep going, I want to appreciate you
definitely.
for everything that you're saying, because I'm such a proponent of words. And I say that words are incredibly powerful. They can make us or break us. They can uplift us or destroy us. And what you're talking about is that, right? And I see it again as someone who's been following you with a little more intentionality since 2021. I see how intentional you are with your words, right? Like, that's the, and not to get like a therapist on you, 'cause I'm sure you got all the help. I'm sure you got all the help you got. But
no, podcasts aren't therapy, okay? Like, understand, this is our free to low cost therapy sessions right here.
That's why I'm like, but I think of your posts, and I feel like every single post you do is a love letter to yourself, is that bit of forgiveness, because you are using those words to paint the picture for people of what your experience is like. And when you paint that picture, when you use your words, you create potential and possibility for others, right? If I see you, it's stupid, but if I see you with earrings on, then I'm going to think, wait, I can do that too. Now imagine if I'm seeing you running the Chicago Marathon, celebrating the shit out of 26.2 miles, all of a sudden I'm going to be like, well, I can do that too. And who's to tell me that I can't, right? So I find that words are so powerful. And I want to thank you for sharing all of that, because as you're speaking, I'm like, yes, I understand that, because I grew up similarly but different. My parents are divorced, but my mother remarried, and she remarried someone who, I won't go deep into the story, but it was definitely, there were points where, not points, but I would say a big rupture in my relationship with my mother is that very similar question of, why didn't she leave him? Why didn't she choose us over him? And now, as an adult and many yees of therapy and a lot of money spent on that.
Oh God, I'm still paying money.
But I realize, and I'm going to assume it's the same for you, where there's a totally different stigma of being a single mother and a single mother of color.
Color, yes.
So different. And, for me, it's, I always tell people this, and y'all, if you've heard any of the podcasts, you know how much I personally struggle with the fact that I live in Miami, and in
Oh
Miami,
boy.
I'm a Latina woman.
Oh
So
boy.
I'm part of the majority here, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have the same racial experience
Yes.
the rest of America does. Like I really
Oh, baby.
don't. Like I talk to you or I'll talk to people and I'm like, oh wow, that. And I try to explain that to people too. It's like, I'm not trying to be ignorant. I'm trying to
Yes.
learn, but my lived
Yes.
experience is so different because I speak Spanish. Because
Mm.
here I can move through all the spaces,
Yes.
English speaking spaces, Spanish speaking spaces, everyone here, it's totally different. And yet I do know and I recognize that growing up, being a family on Section 8 was something that we had to keep hidden, right? Like that was
Mm.
something you didn't want the people to
Baby.
know that you were struggling. And part
Yes.
of that struggle is keeping, and I don't know if you had the same rules in your household as I
Oh, keep
did.
your inside business inside.
Yes. Yes. It was like nobody knows.
Funny.
And it really got to the point with my
Ah.
mom. I still think back on this, and it keeping the inside business inside became so isolating. My mother didn't want us sharing phone numbers,
Oh wow.
addresses with extended family because she just really didn't want people to
Oh,
know what was going on. And that's something that as a child I struggled with because I didn't have my extended family. You know, it really was community, which it sounds like for you too, where it was like it's the friends that you had, it was your husband, it was the family you created for yourself that you could lean on. But I also think it's so interesting, and I'm going to probably reflect on this myself later, but it's so interesting that you took the route that you did, which is sharing so much of your story. Obviously, there's a lot that you keep close to your heart that is only for your inner circle. But when it comes to being a runner and being in this space,
oh, you don't share that stuff as a runner, you know.
so like, how did you
Like,
get to that point of saying, like, okay,
yeah.
I know I'm not quote unquote normal, right? I don't fit the standard. I don't fit what is um glorified within the running space, right? Like I don't fit that standard either. And at this point, I'm so happy I don't. I'm so happy I don't because my daughters don't fit that standard either.
Right.
A ton of people here in Miami don't fit that standard either. And yet if they see me doing it, then they're going to give it a try.
Right.
So that's the question I have for you now is just
Mhm.
how did you get, and maybe this is digging too deep, but it's
No,
like,
no, no, no,
how
no.
did you break that pattern? Right?
Mm.
Because if it's for you, it's for me, it's the same. Like it's, it's kind of almost these generational patterns of keeping the ugly hidden from view. How did you get to that point where, I mean, was that even a question? Was that something that you thought
Oh
about?
no,
Was
this
it just
I
like,
think
you're
about it
like,
every day. That
okay,
is that is literally that's something I think about every day. The thing is, like, I took mental notes of things that you said. One, growing up in Miami and realizing, like, okay, you're around a community that speaks the same language. Um, I found that that was my superpower and my kryptonite in this space, in this running community. That as my story started to grow from the 2017 New York City Marathon, this is the first time that a lot of people learned about me, in the athletic space. And I got heckled at the New York City Marathon in 2017, around miles 22 to around time miles 21, 22, somewhere around that part, wherever it's pretty much Harlem Run Plaza that you pretty much would run across. And it was a guy that screamed, "I was going to take your fat ass forever." And it was a tall, balding white man that said this to me. So I put this descriptor in my 925 word piece for the route. It was two women. I thought it was a joke. As you can tell, my mouth sometimes can be a little filthy. So I responded as much back when I got an email from the route saying, "Hey, my name is Veronica Webb." And I was like, that sounds familiar. I was like, she sounds like somebody that was on TV. And she was somebody, she's the first cover model. She was the first person, the first African American with a makeup that had like a makeup deal She's an actress, and she wears many hats. So when I received this email, I said, "What asshole is heading up my inbox, trolling me today?" Because by this point, I was already starting the whole storytelling thing, because this is when people believed that Instagram was not made for writing. And I, as an artist, was like, I can make this to whatever the hell I desire. So like, like the small, like a sidebar is, what people don't realize about me is that not only like the Running Fat Chef pseudonym comes from literally me getting into running, me being plus size, and then taking on that double name of the double word, the double meaning for the word fat, which is seasoning in a dish. Yeah, I'm like, you make and build a dish with
The
fat.
sazon. The
Right, the
sazon.
sazon of the dish,
Yeah.
baby. You like if you ain't got that, then baby, what are we doing right here? And then there's the other side that people wanted me to find shame in, and I realized I was borrowing people's shame along the way. And I was just like, wait, hold up. I'm like, because I'm like, bitch, I look good. Like, what do you mean? Like, once I started to embrace the size I was in, like, it's always like this learning curve you have to go through. It's just like, oh my God, my body just changed. Things don't move the same. Why is this folding over? But this is solid. This looks a little plump and juicy. I'm like, didn't I want this when I was in high school? And then I had to battle that back and forth, but the decade wasn't calling for that. The decade was calling for snatch waist. Hips had to be pow. Breasts had to be bow, had to be sitting up. And I'm like, I just had a baby. Um, like, I am not getting the snatchback body like all the other girls. I'm like, why is my stomach sticking out to here? Not realizing I'm walking around with a whole hernia. But like, that's another TED talk. And then the postpartum and stuff. So once I'm like, the postpartum is something I don't think people talk about enough. So I was just like, why are we not hearing these stories? Why do we keep hearing like these Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers stories, but we're not hearing anything about the gray area that I'm experiencing? So here, like the beauty of growing up in Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, East New York, and all these areas in Brooklyn is that I got to see people that look like me every single day. Every single day, I knew what people looked like me. I knew what people that sounded like me. I knew I was surrounded by, Black and brown people every single day. So when I got into the running scene, I'm just like, it's incredibly white here. And I mean, this is just me being here in New York. But because the beauty and the curse of being in these boroughs, you don't have to leave your borough to have a good time. And it's not to say that, for work, it was like I adjusted and adapted to being around more white people when I was in a professional environment and corporate, like where it was like, okay, it was almost assumed that white people were in leadership. You would see the difference when you walk into an office and you knew who the supervisor was, even if it was a person of color. You could always see who's the supervisor. People's shoulders change. Got to lock up. Oh, how you doing? And like you go from informal to formal. How you doing? The Mr. and Mrs. Are starting to thrown out there. Everybody's very rigid and they're not loose. And I am feeling like I'm really the high school dropout. Like, why everybody changing up? Why are you acting different? I'm showing up as myself to these run groups. And while they're saying with their mouths, we welcome everyone. All you need is a pair of shoes and you can show up. I would have people asking me questions like, what are those? What are those things on your feet? Like, what sneakers did you show up in, honey? And I'm like, well, this is what I can afford. I got these Payless Shoe Source sneakers that's going to run out in like 2 weeks because I went through the stage of, I just want to run everywhere, and I'm like, why are these sneakers falling to the side? Why are they singing Negro spirituals right now? Why are they talking from behind? And I didn't have anyone in that group that really would pull me to the side to say, honey, these are not running sneakers. Like the education wasn't there. And it literally took for me to go back to my community, go to my track, and walk there a couple of times. And that's when I encountered Black Girls Run. And I was just like, it's crazy how I had to go back to my community for someone to educate me on the things I didn't know. And yes, Google was always there. And I Googled certain things, but I was just like, everything that was popping up on Google was like, we need these $159 sneakers. And I'm just like, well, I could do the same thing with these $20 sneakers. And yes and no. So we don't talk enough about the accessibility piece. We don't talk enough about not just inviting people to tables, but what do you do then? What kind of food are you serving? Do they have allergies at this table? Okay. Is there any gluten intolerances at this table? And that's what I felt like. I felt like the gluten intolerant. I was the gluten version to a whole bunch of gluten-free folks. And they're just like, we don't want to tell her she don't belong here. We're just going to acknowledge her. We're going to smile, that tight smile that looks really weird and awkward. And hopefully you're able to keep up. And they was like, oh, don't worry about it. We have a slower pace group. It's 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Listen, because I know you started
What?
running. You started running around the same time that I did.
2013.
Yeah. So
what?
that is something, and I just want to appreciate you saying that, because I go off on accessibility because there's levels to it, right? It's not only at this point, I strongly dislike when people say running is free, because running is not free. It's not free. Like,
I'm a sponsored athlete, and I'm telling you, it's not free. Okay, do you understand how crazy that is? It's that I acknowledge my privilege. Like, let's be clear here. Okay, like, to look back at my journey from 2013 to 2023, I am thankful to be a Hoka Global Athlete Ambassador, because now I get to enjoy these perks. I ain't gonna tell you all the perks, but I do get paid. I will say this: I get paid. And it's not like life altering money, but it is something that I get to say and wake up every morning of, yes, I am an athlete, and I do this shit for a living. And even with it, I can tell you that I have access to more things now because of status than I ever had when I was out here openly saying, I can't afford this. And people are like, tough shit, figure it out. And I'm just like, and so now I have this, now I live in these two worlds where I don't want to feel guilty for having access. But then at the other time, the other part of me is just like, how can I use my platform to amplify these things and make it accessible to as many people as possible? And if it means that I go out there and I make a damn reel on TikTok that says earrings, glasses, socks, shirts, I'm telling you where I'm getting these things from, what they look like. It's not just from a vanity standpoint of, hey, I look good. And yes, of course, I want to do this because I look good. But a lot of it was just more like, if I can make this palatable enough and entertaining enough to put this in video form, to show to people, here's where my mental health is at. And you probably can't afford mental health services in America because everything's expensive. You probably can't afford the top of the line things, but here's how I'm actually, even as an athlete who gets to represent different brands, this is how I'm making this approachable. And here's what I can do. And I'm answering these things from the inbox. So for someone who's just like, oh yeah, why don't you get a running coach if you can't afford the running coach? And what do you do? A lot of us go to social media. So I'm just like, can I be one of those people who don't contribute bullshit to the internet? Because I see a lot of that being thrown out there. You're not a real runner unless you run at 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Like, what? Like, honey, at my best, I ran at 8:42. It was for a mile, okay? And I was dying. What am I doing? Where is my lungs? And is it in California right now, even though my physical body is here in New York?
Yeah. That stuff is, so again, like accessibility, and we can touch upon not only the gear that you wear, but also even just, do you have access to safe spaces to run? Do you have people to run with? And so there's that.
If you feel safe running with people, because it's just like,
do you have childcare?
Right, you do have childcare. Like, I mean, like, let's think about this. If we're showing up to run groups who says that their slow distance is a 10-minute pace or a 12-minute pace, then you're already knocked out the bunch, because you're most likely, if you have someone that is willing to stay with you, they're possibly going to shame you the entire time. Hey, can you run a little bit faster? Man, if you run this slow,
okay, at this point, okay. You and I need to get together, and we need to do a master class on running with
Listen,
people because it is my
listen.
goal. I've done run clubs. I've hosted my own run clubs. I run with people. I've had people who tell me, "Oh, I don't know if I can keep up with you." And I'm like, "No, like I'm keeping up with you."
You.
Then I'm going to make it even easier by talking about myself so that you're distracted by what's
Right.
physically happening. I mean, I have at this point so much practice where I'll be like, oh, the weather, or I'll talk about food, or there's so much you can talk about. Like, human beings are amazing. And
Yes.
yet I feel like I'm going to channel your dad right now, where it's like, we're so amazing, but then we're so dumb at the same time.
Fucking dumb.
Where
Right.
it's like, where it's like you can run with someone and guess what? Not talk about running while you're running with them. Like I
Oh
do
my
it
God, that's
I'm
mind
running
blowing.
with
What do you mean?
people.
Talk about something outside of running. You have a life outside of this?
I will
Like,
talk about music. I'm like, whatever it is, I often
yes,
ask people, like, there's two things that I feel like happen here. And again, I'm like, we need to do a master class on this because there's
yes,
two things. It's one, you need to not be afraid to say, I need you to slow down for me. That's one.
yes.
And two, you you, I see
Hmm.
you, universal, don't, for those of you who are questioning going to run clubs or questioning whether you're quote unquote too slow, don't assume what other people are willing to do for you. Don't
Yes.
say, I'm not going to go because no one's going to. No, don't make that assumption. You have no clue what someone is willing to do for
But
you.
I will play devil's advocate. It is hard if it's hard to show up as yourself, it's hard to request things as yourself too.
Oh, for
So
sure.
that takes practice.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
that takes a lot of practice. Like I kid you not, even with me being a big mouth, I know how to sit here and say, hey, listen, I'm not with this. It's just like what happens after you say it. And it's just like, what's the response? And people sometimes don't know how to, and that was like a lot of my hardships throughout, not just in running, but in my entire life. It was just like people would say, well, if you want something to say it. And then I'll say it, and then like, you can't say it like that. Like, what? Wait, hold up. You told me to ask for help. Like, almost like when you hear the cliche thing, checking on your strong friends, and then it's like, okay, the strong friend says now I'm not strong at this moment. And then that person goes in with no tools and say, now what?
Yep.
And that's what we're stuck in. We are stuck in the now what stage. People are all offering out, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you, but they haven't done the work to figure out how to help us. Help me help you help us.
So then I think, now that I'm hearing you say that, because I'm going to assume you
It's
and I are in the same boat of like always being the strong one and like having
yeah.
to get it together. And oftentimes, what I think is, or what I feel is, when I tell someone I just need to be soft or I need to not be strong, what I want from them is, how can I help you do that? That
Mm,
question of how can I help you do that? Because then maybe you don't know what that is, but I can tell you right now, being strong means I need to go do groceries and pick my kids up. Like for me, usually the being strong piece is that I have to keep doing stuff.
is to keep doing, but that's what society has been feeding us, particularly women and non-binary people, all of our lives. You be strong, but not like that. We've all been fed that contradiction throughout our entire lives. We've been told, so that I know why I am looked at as problematic in this space, because I tried everything they told me to do. I followed the handbook. The handbook was get faster. I got faster. They told me to lose weight. I lost 100 pounds in a year. I'm an overachiever. I am top of the class, baby. I made it. I made it. They told me, oh, well, you can't call yourself a real athlete until you get a certain size. I made the size, and I even did the whole predatory food practices that led me to an eating disorder. And even then, they were just like, you're still not doing it right. So I almost died for this space. I followed the Mickey Mouse handbook. I followed, rule 264 that I would have to run every single day. Every single day, there's no breaks with sleep. And yes, you're supposed to maintain a job, and you're supposed to, show up and run groups, and you're supposed to practice toxic positivity, and you smile even though, somebody in your family died, but don't worry about it. Running solves everything. I follow all these rules, and I'm just like, why do I not like myself? I shapeshift myself into a Prince symbol, and I still do not feel good in my own body. And most importantly, I feel like I'm in a prison that I created. Once you've hit that rock bottom, you've lost everything. If you can't identify who you are, why you are doing something, and what's your purpose at this very moment, how do you know where the hell you're going? So 26.2 miles might as well be, it could be 1,000 miles, because you don't know where the finish line is at. And if you don't understand why you are doing something, why am I showing up? You don't have to have the entire plan, but if you have no idea of the pieces, and I'm just, I'm just taking up space just so I can be a paperweight versus I'm taking up space deliberately. What are we doing? How do we give ourselves permission to tell people, hey, listen, I need you to slow down. And not only when you accompany me, I need you to actually be quiet. I need your physical body to be here, but I work best when I'm able to work through these moments. When I'm out here and I'm at mile 20, and I'm crying, can you just please don't tell me to stop crying? I need to cry, because if the crying is giving me permission to be able to say, I got all of the dirt out, because that's what tears do. Tears cleanse. So let me clear it out so I can make space for myself at this moment. When I go across this finish line, I want you to come with me, because you are one of the helpers. You are one of the enablers. And the thing is, before we can get to that place of feeling like we can own all of that, we also need the help of community to be able to give us permission to do that. And this community to be, I'm gonna be very honest here. I have not got to a place where I feel comfortable going consistently back to a run group, because when I became viral in this space, with my story in 2017, people cheerleaded me on, but because I've had experience of working in mainstream media, by proxy of my husband and I being freelance photographers, and I remember, like, my husband is an introvert, I'm an extrovert. And before now he openly talks to people or whatever. But before, I used to be the icebreaker. So, he would get the room set up or whatever. And while he's putting up all the equipment, I would talk to the models. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. And that's a standard question that people ask, but they don't really want to answer back. But I would go back and say, no, really, how are you? And I would watch people crumble and tell me their entire life of what is going wrong. And they're just like, nobody's really asked me how I was doing. And I think that that's what the problem is with this community, is that we're asking, but we ain't really looking for an answer, because there's too much invested in the gatekeeping. There's too much invested in feeling like I'm better than you, because every other aspect of their lives probably has no identity. It probably has no type of layering to it. And this is not the case for everybody, but I realize there is money in gatekeeping, but there is also money in inclusivity. And now you have to ask yourself a moral question of what side of that do you want to stand on? And this is the reason why we're not growing. We're growing, and more people are giving themselves permission to open their mouths and to say something about it, but we don't really have an action plan. We're just making noise at this point. So it's so hard to show up as yourself that it almost comes off as a rebellion. And if that's what I'm doing, then fuck it, I'm here for it. I'm tossing chairs.
I love all of that, because I think you're onto something, because there is growth. And I'm going to say this, and I'm just going to try to think through what I want to say. So
Yes,
there's growth in numbers, right? There's growth in more people are coming to the sport, but it's like, we're like, quantitatively running is growing, but qualitatively it's not changing, right?
No.
I had someone message me, and this is one of my friends, and she ran her first 5K this past weekend. And she's like, I did my first 5K, but I walked a lot. And yeah, I'm sure that would have been really easy for you because you run so much more. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, 5Ks are hard. I don't know why. So it's like, it's great that she did it, but then she had to add the asterisk to it of, I did it, but I walked, or I did it, but I'm sure that would have been easy for you. And it's like, no, it's still your experience.
But think about it. I say take the Boston Marathon experience, right? like I did my one and only, and I can't say I completed it because I didn't. I had an invitation. This is the place of privilege,
Oh,
but
but
people don't realize
Latoya,
this is work. This is
but you
work.
took someone's spot.
It's
How
someone's
could you
spot.
take
I
someone's spot?
I was
I'm sure
loaded with
you
these.
got that.
You kidding me? Not only was I loaded with that, but I got loaded with, people was like, it was easier for them to call me a fat bitch versus saying cold word for racist commentary. And I'm just like, you do understand that this is a lot of white supremacy coming through on this comments of you don't belong here and you never belong here. And even if you would get down to the size and you get down to the speed, we'll never respect you. And I was just like, I'm just not going to find the PR way of answering that. I'm going to always tell you to go fuck yourself and kick rocks. So because of it, I got a lot of negative backlash when I had that invitation to do the Boston Marathon. And at that time, I was still recovering from COVID. Like I had long-term COVID. Like, like I'm talking about feeling like you're breathing through a straw at times. Walking down the block felt like difficult, like a challenge. And I told myself I want to be back in this space. So I gave it my absolute all while respecting my body, a conversation that does not happen often, where it's just like, go out there and be, do hard and stay hard. And, it don't matter. That's just pain is weakness leaving the body. Like, hey, baby, mental and physical health issues do exist. I am one of those wonderful students who's in it, and I sit in it every single day. Like I tell people, don't let my big mouth fool you. I don't want anyone to sit here and think that I am not strong and vulnerable, that I am not that I'm a pay grade above being, being open and saying I have moments where I'm not feeling great about this. I am not above saying to hell with this, I'm staying home. And it's like we don't talk about that because then you're not a real athlete. An athlete by definition is someone who is performing a certain duty or a certain task, and they're doing these things on a consistent basis. But I would like to put in my asterisks of that also includes your rest, that also includes honoring your body when your body is telling you absolutely not. That means also honoring your body in the recovery process because you are encountering an injury or your mental health is falling apart. Why are we not talking about that as much as we're talking about, oh man, I got this entry into the Boston Marathon? People are shaming people for fundraising. As a person who has fundraised for damn near this entire year, like, I mean, I'm a sponsored athlete. Yes, I do get invitations. Sometimes I take them up, but let's be clear here. For anyone who's never heard anyone talk openly about this, even with your sponsorships, there's always a fine print that's there. We are only going to cover so much. Depending on what you negotiate for, you can't do certain things. It depends on what kind of agreement you kind of make for yourself. And I'm going to say openly, when companies see a neurotic person like me say, hey, I'm going to sign up for 40 races in a year, they're not covering all that. I would have to be Serena Williams in this sport for them to cover all of that. Okay. And I am not her. And I love me some Serena, but I'm not trying to be her. I'm trying to be Latoya Shauntay Snell. I'm not trying to reinvent or be anyone that's out there. I am trying to be myself, show up as myself, and be great at being myself out there. So like I've had people try to remix this and say that, oh, I'm doing this for clout remaining fat. I'm doing this for clout coming in last. I'm like, baby, really? Like, really? I'll say, because 5 minutes ago, y'all told me I didn't belong here. And now that I'm here, you have a problem with how I got here. And I see this happen when it comes down to how people shame the fundraisers, how people shame anyone who's had a free entry extended to them, to anyone who has no idea of how someone else got there, except for, oh, I made it in at this time. You took someone else's spot. How fucking dare you sit here and try to dictate how someone else got in here? Because if running really is for everyone and all we need is a pair of sneakers, and dare I challenge that as an ultra runner, that there are people who run barefoot during races, how dare you tell somebody how they show up? the way that they're accepted, and to tell them that they're not an athlete while doing it. If I want to power walk and sashay for 26.2 miles, it is still 26.2 miles. And if it happens to be like the day of the Boston Marathon, where I showed up and my legs literally collapsed underneath me because I have medical issues that extend both of these hands, then who are you to tell me I'm not an athlete then when I say, you know what? This is the end of my race day. Even at an athletic arena like the Boston Marathon. Why are we afraid to tell these damn stories? So I'm going to tell you these stories while fat, while Black, while queer as hell, while sitting here wearing earrings when people tell you that they're not supposed to do it. Please, they weren't even considering us women in sports how many years ago. So now there is no template, so I'm making it. And if you don't like it, that my neurodivergent ass is here showing up as myself, then baby, you need to stay the hell out of my way, because I'm going to always show up as me. And there's no asterisk to how I showed up. I did 26.2 miles, period. And I will do it again, period. And if I am putting my money out there, my space, my energy, and my time, I will do it on my terms, my way. And yes, I do think that racists who are going to collect my money and then go the distance to say, you can go to the sidewalk, even if there's not going to be a finish line tape there at the end, at the very least, they can respect my gangster for showing up.
It's just there. I just like just a moment silence in honor of that, because it really is. I find a race like Boston incredibly interesting. I find it is, as a runner and as a lover of this sport, I find Boston to be such a great social experiment of how
Yes.
You can bring out the spirit of running in such a beautiful way, and then you can bring out the ugliness of humanity in such a jaw-dropping way. Because as I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking of, well, what about those elite athletes that drop out because they're injured and no one says anything to them? Instead, the dialogue is, I'm glad for them. I mean, how many we have New York City coming up, right? You had a whole slew of elite athletes that were supposed to run, and a lot of them have dropped off because they're injured, or because they have an injury that they would rather recover from so that they can be ready for the Olympic trials. And no one is criticizing them. No one is telling them they took up a spot. And I just want to tell people, if you don't know this already, I want you to know that your race entry for marathon majors and a lot of races, it goes towards paying the prize money for these elite athletes who are already paid something just to show up, right? So it's like, it really doesn't, we're kind of all on equal grounds here. And again, with a race like Boston, you have all these charity races where I would love to see the Boston Marathon financials. I'm one of those person where I'm like, I want to see the receipts. I want to see how people put it on. I want to talk to people. I want to know, because I guarantee you the money that the charity runners are bringing in, that's money that is probably paying for about half of that race's production. So those people who earn entry, you're actually probably, don't hate me here, but you're probably earning entry to a race that a charity runner has made possible for you to do. So to me, it's one of those things where, why does it matter? And I had my own experience of, and I'll go into it very, very briefly. I ran Marine Corps Marathon this past weekend, and the past few months of my life have been very, very challenging. My dog died. It was a struggle to get into our house. We moved 5 times in the last 6 months. It's been really, really, really challenging. And in a marathon, you've done enough marathons, so you never know what's going to come up. Never know. You don't know what emotional state you're going to be in. So I'm running this marathon, and around mile 10, I just wanted to cry because I couldn't stop thinking about my dead dog. And I realize now that my dead dog, she embodied everything that I felt like I had lost. And that was incredibly frustrating for me to experience during a race, because that's not where I wanted to be mentally. Mentally, I wanted to be fighting for this race. I wanted to, like, have an experience, but that experience that I had was just one of grief. And while I was on the course, I saw at mile 16, there was a man down and they were giving him CPR. The emergency units, I've been checking my phone to see if I've been checking the news to see if I can see if that person made it or not. But I spent the final 10 miles of that race thinking, why the fuck do we care about time? Why do we care about any of it if we're not guaranteed anything? We're not guaranteed we make it to the start line. We're not guaranteed we make it to a finish line. None of it is guaranteed. And yet we are attributing our worth, not just as runners, but as human beings, to how fast we can run. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you don't even start. Doesn't matter if you can't even get there. So to me, it's always so interesting when we talk about our paces, or when that is the thing that's preventing us, when that's the gatekeeper, it blows my mind that the voices that are gatekeeping that are so incredibly loud, and that there's so many of us out there who will never experience our own potential, who will never experience the friendships that can come out of being a runner, out of doing these things, all because one person says you don't belong here, or whether they say it or they imply it or they're leaving messages or whatever the case is, but they're saying you don't belong here because you don't fit the part.
What exactly does the part look like? You have to ask yourself, what exactly does the part look like? And one, as far as the cleansing tears at mile 10, and then having a reflection at mile 16. I think I don't, but I am like Bob Ross in that sense. I have his little figurine I'm looking at him on the desk, and I believe in happy accidents, which is kind of like code word for me is things an accident. I think that sometimes we're presented and we're shown certain things so we can grow. And we are forced to reflect. The beauty of running is that when you do have that solitude, even when you're running with a group, you're able to reflect. You're essentially like, it's like an active zenning out. I never understood, like, when it comes down to this elitist commentary, because it's not coming from elite athletes. I have some of them as friends. They're incredible. They're the most down to earth people that you'll ever meet, and they have their own list of shit too that they're going through. And when it comes down to learning about how the prize money works, how the pressures that they're put on, the stipulations that's held on their contracts, we realize that we're all in this rat race together. And it just looks different across the board. Like a lot of what when the more I started getting into this space, the more I started understanding not just the politics of this space, but I realized that some of the loudmouths are really coming from within the community, and that's like almost in any community. You build up something that's great, and you have one person that can fuck it up. But the key is for the community to actually hold those people accountable. And the problem is that you have so many people who are left unchecked. To be brought down to a humble moment of, why did you show up? Weren't you a beginner at some point? Even if you were killing it from day one, it's just like, okay, you have this natural ability. You have plenty of people out here with natural abilities. I see it all throughout New York City. You want to see natural abilities? Go into New York City subway stations. You see the most talented people who may never ever touch Hollywood. Okay. So it's not it's like it's only part of the job to have a natural ability, or the ability to be able to show up and be fast. What does your personality look like? Are you opening up the pathway to somebody else doing this? When I see people that come at me and they're just like, how did you get that? You run slow. How did you get these ambassador programs? How are you in the limelight? This and this. And then all I hear is hate, 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 hate. And I'm just like, okay, that's cute. I have much more to offer than my speed or my lack of speed. I have a story to tell. And my story does not necessarily amplify me. My story was a gateway of, hi, here's my introduction. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. These are the things I'm passionate about. But I want my passions to kind of help other people. And I would encourage anyone who wants to be a fitness creative in this space, or want to be a coach, or you have to do this more than just for you. You can start out, I'm not telling you to abandon your own personal dreams, but when you want to foster a real community, when you want to amplify people in that space, when you want to build onto these spaces, that story has to thrive beyond you. What legacy are you building in this space besides centering yourself? And if you cannot do anything besides centering yourself, then maybe your story, you need extra characters in there. Maybe you need to you need to go back to the storyboard and work some shit out, because this story is sounding really, really fucking boring and old. Even when we read memoirs, and I say this as a person, my free time, I spend like I know y'all guys probably can't see my desk. My desk is filled up with books. I am a nerd. The only thing I don't do is I don't look at comic books like that, even though I have on I would have on a
The
shirt.
graphic
It's
shirt.
like this. Showing people don't put others down. Yeah, of course I would have one, something like this is from Star Wars. But I mean, my family, we're all a bunch of artists and nerds in this house. And the one thing I've learned with storytelling, because I'm an artist first and an athlete second. When it comes down to professions, I do motivational speaking. I love to write, not just for sharing parts of my story, but I love sharing other people's stories and encouraging other people to share their stories. It's like the biggest gift you can ever give me, if you ever meet me in person, is tell me who you are. Tell me what your name is. Your name matters. And if I fuck up your name, you correct me. And to be able to tell me how you showed up, not for you to sit here and tell me, oh my God, you're so amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll take it. If I'm still adjusting to that. But I love learning people's stories. So if we're going to be in this space and we're just like, oh, I want to have this center stage, first off, it's a lot of pressure in this. Two, the checks ain't always checking. And three, when it comes down to having a platform and growing your platform, wherever it may be, you can CC this to cycling, you can CC this to your workplace environment. If you are going to build up communities, you have to know, one, what is your reason why? Two, what is the problem that you're trying to identifying the problem, and then figuring out what are you trying to solve. And then we can start going into the middle and figuring out what went wrong here. When did this start? We all need an origin story. Like when we think about body image, and we say these toxic things to ourselves of, I love my body, but, and then like the asterisks, or as your friend, the person that said to you, I completed this 5K, but I see people do it in my comment sections all day long. They'll sit here and say, oh my God, look at you knocking out those push-ups. I have no excuse, but look at my body. My body is less than yours, and I can't do that. And I'm just like, but you don't know what came before this. You don't know how many times I screwed up, how many times I'm still screwing up. You don't know how many edits this took. You don't know what came in here. So why are we comparing ourselves and downplaying our own accomplishments just because you saw somebody's end product? Make that make sense. Make that
Yep.
make sense. Before someone can actually give you a solution, they had to figure out their own problem. So before we go out here and jump on people and sit here and say, oh, that person ain't running fast enough, this is this, I suggest you to look internally and ask yourself, why does this matter? When's the first time that you actually told yourself that a real athlete has to run at a 9-minute pace? When's the first time that you told yourself that people who look like me don't deserve to be in that space? Ask yourself, where did you pick up the language? Because most likely it is not innate and it's not intuitive, it is borrowed language. When we talk horribly about ourselves, even when we talk good about ourselves, we are borrowing somebody else's commentary. We are inheriting good things and bad things. Just like for me, with my personal demons and my issues with being able to open up to going into run groups. I didn't always have that personality. My personality is loud and bold, and I love being around people. Where it came from was when I started getting ostracized in this community. When I got built up in 2017, I was up here, and people were just like, man, We love her story. She got heckled and she told him, hell no, I'm going to still go. I got that 26.2. And I was worried, just like the models that sit in my husband's chair at time, when I asked them, really, how are you? I became that person at that moment and said, I'm not feeling so great, because once this story got amplified, people were just like, what's next? Is she going to lose weight? They inserted their own stories into it. So I lost my own narrative along the way, and I had to fight twice as hard just to be able to say, I am showing up as myself, and I'm not going to apologize for it because it makes you feel uncomfortable, because maybe it's amplifying something in yourself or in your own background story that told you people like me are wrong. People like me, you can't show up and be fat in the space and be an athlete. There's no such thing as fat and fit. Who told you that? Who told you that? So like I would challenge people, even my haters, especially my haters. I've actually made some haters be my friend. I can't make this up. Like, I won't put the person's name out there, but him and I have coffee 4 times a year. And he hated the hell out of me. He was on the top 10 list of, if I saw you in the street, I smack you across the face, and him and I have coffee 4 times a year. It wasn't like I was trying to change him. I'm not trying to be his personal Jesus. It was just more or less that the more that we tried to separate ourselves, the more that we realized that we had in common, we both had a trauma in common. And I reminded him of the trauma of a story that he was fed, that people like me are not supposed to exist in this space. And then the person who was not supposed to exist decided to talk back to him. So as much as I can be snarky online and I can tell you about, like, you salty like my haters and this and this, I'm sorry, not sorry. I used to do open mics. I used to do poetry. My biggest dream in the world is to become a writer. As a person who can be metaphorical and I can be real quick with it, the work for me is to actually slow down my thoughts sometimes and to say, not so much match you with kindness, but meet you at your where you're at this very moment. That was a challenge for me in this space, because all I know is how to knuckle up. I knuckle up in my words. I knuckle up with my hands. I'm real good at it. That's innate. I've been a fighter because I had no choice but to fight my entire life. All my life I had to fight, but no, but it's terrible. But real deal. Like, it is easier for me to knuckle up versus saying I'm hurting, because that requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires work, and it requires for you to do it's like for me doing hill repeats. I hate them shits, but if I want to get better and to accomplish big things, it requires for me to do my own internal work before I go out there and to preach to the internet about what they should do and how they're going to step off to me. And a lot of us find some of these things to be easier to go out there and be speedy and I'm fast as fuck energy, but they don't know what it is to slow down. I'm great at powerlifting. Like, people ask me, why don't I go pro for that every day? And I'm like, there's a part of me that feel like I'm gonna lose that. If I go pro, I'll lose the magic that makes it, unique. If I ever went pro, I kid you not, it is innate in me to lift up heavy things and say, I can put 375 pounds on my back and say, still put some more on here. And people are just like, whoa, you could be elite at this rate. And I'm like, this is innate. I'm used to carrying heavy things. I'm used to carrying heavier things like burdens. Like knowing that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm possibly not going to be able to shower myself because my chronic illnesses decided to flare up that day. That's the unpredictability of me showing up at start lines. I don't know what kind of day I'm going to have, even if I trained 20 weeks for it. I've shown up at start lines and ended start lines with blood running down my legs because endometriosis is just like, hey, I'm checking in. And PCOS decided that it was going to tag in and say, me too. And then sciatica was like, baby, I want to get in the club. And next thing I know, I'm showing up at the finish line, terrified about taking that picture. And I realized the hardest thing that I did that day was not the 26.2, but it was the aftermath of the finish line. Do I take this picture? Do I tell a story with this with social media and possibly get shamed for it? And I know that the real metal on it is I just amplified somebody who just went through this too, who may not ever show up at a start line because they're not willing to do what I just did. But if I tell that story, that unlocks space for somebody else to do that. And that's what my magic is. My magic is I want to tell my story with the hopes that other people get to tell brave fucking stories and inspire another generation to show up, to constantly show up, to constantly show up, and to constantly show up. That's where my magic is. That's my reward. That's my medal. Because I got all these medals in the background, and my family, they so used to it. They're like, all right, we're gonna put this one out. I'm like, I don't know. Because it's not about the medal. I look at the medals and I get to remember the stories. And I'm like, that's what I want to take with me. You
Well,
know, not the speed.
no, and it's what you said earlier in terms of, I'm going to kind of connect it all right here, where you said the importance of understanding your why, of understanding what the problem is you're trying to solve, and then letting that why be what guides you as you create a legacy. And that's what you're doing every single day that you show up. And again, it's when I talk to you, when I see your posts, when I hear what you have to say, when I read your words, what comes up for me is possibility. It's the
Mm,
possibility you create for others, because maybe someone with endometriosis will never run a marathon, but seeing you tell your story, they will sign up for that 5K, right?
right.
Seeing you tell that story means the next time their friend says, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Instead of saying no, they say yes,
Mm, yes.
right? That's the legacy. The legacy is how it ripples from you, how it ripples from all of us, right? Without us even knowing what it is. And it's simply because you shared in a way that created possibility. You
Right.
shared in a way that opens up the eyes for people to see that I don't have to do things like everyone else. I can
Oh,
do them in my way. I always say it, it's that, like, I said earlier, I'm like, it's the sazon. It's like, what's your style? ¿Qué es tu estilo? Like, how are
right.
you
Yes.
making it what it is for you? We're all so different. And it's amazing because we are different. And yet in certain spaces and with certain things, and I know it has a lot to do with being beginners or being new and wanting to belong, we do start to forget who we are in order
Mhm.
to fit in. And yet this is a reminder for myself, for yourself, for everyone here. It's part of what makes being a human challenging, but also exciting, is the fact that we have the opportunity to constantly figure out who we are. We don't have to stay in one spot. We don't have to stay in one shape. We don't have to stay. I mean, we didn't even touch upon, being in a female body and what it means to grow older and how your body changes and all of that. I mean, I
God.
myself, I'm turning 40 next year, and I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. The body, I feel like I'm going through puberty again because hormones are changing,
Oh, oh Lord, it's
So
ghetto.
there's a lot that's happening. And I find that when we do talk about these things, even if people, their first response is oh, you're going to find the people. And I think it's the same thing with run clubs. And like when you were talking about, speaking up for yourself, I realized I've started doing it and I've been running since 2012. But I would say this is the first year that I've started with, I'm running. I need to do this amount of mileage. I would like to do it at this pace. Who can join me? And I have been running for
Mm,
a while, right? But it's now. So I understand that there is some hesitancy to do that, or there's just the fear
yeah.
of rejection is so big. And I get it. I understand it. And I guess I share all that just to remind people that the people who will accept you will accept you. Keep
Yeah.
looking. Keep looking. If you go to a space and you don't feel it there, you don't feel like you belong, you feel like there's elitism, keep looking. Keep looking. And I know it's harder said than done, but if the looking doesn't help, create it for yourself. I
Yes.
guarantee you that there is someone in your community. There's a friend, there's a mom, there's your dad, there's someone in your parent, like your kids' class. There is someone that is looking for a walking partner. There is someone that is looking for a movement partner, and that's where it starts. So I have three more questions for you. Are you okay for time? Okay. I have three more
Yes.
questions. Okay. I've got three more questions.
Yes.
Um, we've kind of touched upon mental health.
Yes.
What do you say to someone who says running is my therapy?
Oh shit. I was right inside door. Just see it out at that moment. Okay. Okay, let's unpack that one. Running is my therapy. Uh, I'm gonna try to tuck away my previous life of working in mental health spaces. There's no therapy like therapy. And it doesn't have to be the one that you have to be medicated with. I think that everybody needs it. To be very honest, I think that we all need our person, and a person that who does not know us, who we get to actually tell our story and figure out and identify our own story through. That's the reason why we don't have doctors who are our family members operate on us. We need someone who is an outsider listening to our stuff, not for them to tell us what to do, but for them to sort through the puzzle pieces. We know all the pieces are here, but certain things aren't plugging in. I think running is therapeutic. I think that through it, if you do it, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Some people's form of therapy is a run walk. Some people's form of running looks more like a really really slow walk and a struggle, because maybe what your need at that moment. Some people need community. Some people need they need to be by themselves for a bit. I am one of those people that need both. Running provides me an outlet, particularly during the longer ones, because people always ask me like you complain during these, like, I mean, I'm documenting every mile, showing you every loony mile where I'm going through these highs, and I know the lows are coming there, but the lows give me so much homework, where I take in those moments. Sometimes I look back at my own IG stories just so I can see where my mind was at. And I'm like, oh, there goes this she goes. She's crumbling right here. Mile 18, she's crumbling. She's going down. The tears are about to come out at 21. Like, I even documented my mental breakdown. Like, people thought that was like, they was like, did you just create this like as a reel to be funny? And I'm like, no, that was an actual breakdown at the Chicago Marathon, where I thought I was at mile 22, and my podcast partner Martinez was on the side at the Chicago Marathon, and he looks at me and he says, "Hey, you're at mile 21." I said, "No, the hell I ain't. I'm not at mile 21. What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Toya, look at the map." And I'm looking at the map, and I was like, "This area is definitely familiar because I've done this marathon. That was my fifth Chicago Marathon." And I'm like, sure enough, I'm at mile fucking 21. And everything in me was like, I'm close. And it felt like a metaphor for my life. I'm always so close, and there's always a hiccup. And it reminded me so much of my mental and physical health, where people may say, like, oh my God, you speak so boldly, and you show up and you're slow anyway. And all those demons started to roll
Yep.
in at that moment of, here I am thinking I'm at mile 21. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm killing it. And my body is breaking down, because my body was like, soon enough, we're going to relax. We're going to have a shower. I'm not going to have to pee on myself for the 60th time, because I was doing it since mile 3. And it's like, here goes this extra mile. And that mile represented the hardships of my health. And I'm just like, if I didn't have polycystic ovarian syndrome, I'd be moving faster than this. If I didn't have endometriosis, then I wouldn't have to tell these stories about being in pain. And when I tell these stories, are they being perverted, or is this like a tiny violin? Like, all of that is coming out, and these are things that I'm suppressing on my everyday, in my
Yeah.
everyday life, where I'm just like, oh, I'm just so used to being in pain, I don't know what it is to actually have a day of being pain free. you know um and the marathon gives me that permission to actually be angry about it without being worried about being the angry Black woman. Like, I don't even let the racist trope even get to me as much anymore, because I found a way to take it back, where I'm just like, I deserve to be angry. I
Yes.
can be angry. I don't have to smile through this. I can be angry. And yes, I am Black and I am a woman, and I own all three of those. Why is this such a trope? Where it's gaslighting. And I'm realizing I'm gaslighting myself in my everyday life when I don't give myself permission to be sad. Mental health, I think running is great, and it is therapeutic. That was my therapeutic moment But I get to take all those thoughts, I get to take it to a talk therapist and say, this is what came up when I was running out here. And I don't know why it showed up at that moment. And that's when my therapist steps in and says, hey, let's try this exercise. Or, hey, depends on what kind of therapist you have. Like, like for me, I knew my entire life certain things weren't clicking. I see things very abstractly. And then simple things sometimes can go past me. It's like, woohoo, 2 + 2 is 4. No, it's not, it's 18. You don't
Yeah.
understand. I carried the one here and this and this. And they're like, there is no one. And I'm like, but not the way that I saw it. And I realized my entire life was like that. And it took for actual therapists to send me to a counselor to say, you're neurodivergent. And I'm like, whoa, you're telling me I've been operating this entire life with extra steps? And instead of feeling like it's a burden, I felt like I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy anymore. So like for me, I think running is therapeutic. It's an outlet. It's a muse. It's a source. It's an art. And the beauty of it is that you have to make sure that your running is not the opposite of therapy, because it could be your punishment.
Yes.
Depends on how you look at it. So that's the reason why that's the reason why my initial thing was like, oh shit. Like it's just like, I used to be that person that used to scream on Instagram posts. Like if you followed me when my face was kind of like moon faced, and it was real sharp, and I was big head and small body bouncing on your screen. Hey guys, I'm at mile 5. I was super happy. I was running 11-minute miles. And now at 18, I'm just like, listen, if I'm angry, I'm angry.
Yeah.
And I am not apologizing for this. There is no fine print for it. I will not show up in cosplay in my own skin. This is who I am. If you don't like it, too damn bad. And I realized that running at that time was therapeutic and a source of harm. So is running therapy? No.
Yeah.
But damn sure could be therapeutic if you use everything in your arsenal to the best of your ability. Anything can be helpful and a detriment, even down to your actual therapy session. If you are telling all these things and you're forthcoming and you realize somewhere along around session 5 that something just don't feel right, it maybe the therapist is not that the therapist is terrible. Maybe the therapist is not for you. Go
Yeah.
find a therapist. We do this with doctors every single day. People
All
are
the
like,
time.
oh my God, I can't go to this doctor because this doctor makes me feel bad about myself, and I don't want to be weighed, and this person tells me I have to, and this and this, and they won't tell me why I have to be weighed. I'm like, fire your fucking doctor. Fire your doctor. I'm like, when we don't like a pair of shoes in the store, we don't pick them up. When we see the price tag, we're like, oh no, like this feels nice, but I can't afford it. We make a decision at that point. We decide either we're going to save up for it and we're going to eventually get that shoe, or we say, let me look for an alternative that feels just as good. Oh, baby, I think I like these better. Why can't
Yeah.
we do that with our running and our life? Any of it. Running is therapeutic.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. What do you have coming up that we can celebrate you in?
Oh my gosh. So I am going to be doing the New York City Marathon. Oh my Lord. I'm gonna be doing the New York City Marathon this weekend. We'll be doing it on Sunday. And this will be, gosh, what number is this? I'm looking at it. I think this is number 7 of New York City Marathon, but this, I'm saying when, I'm not saying if. I like to call things and say I'm putting it out there. When I cross that finish line, what it is, most likely for New York City, what I love about New York City is that they real deal have been keeping this finish line open for super long. This is the first time I'm going to be showing up as wave 1, so I have mixed feelings about it. Like a part of me is almost feeling like this is like a program that they kind of pulled out this year, where they wanted to give people in the back of some people in the back of the pack the opportunity to be able to experience that wave 1 feel, where they can have more time out there. And I happen to be one of those snail pace runners. It's the opposite of my last name. Snell is German for faster. But if you listen to me long enough here, you'll realize that my entire life is a whole contradiction. I'm an athlete who dropped out for 7 gym credits. Like, where did they do that? So it's just like you can realize you can remix your own life. So for me, this is gonna be the first year I'm actually gonna be in wave 1, and I'm just like, where's my slower people? You know, like I'm hoping I see some of my slower pace athletes out there. I'm going in with a different set of nerves this time. This time I'm more like, are the wave run runners who usually are wave run runners, are they going to be angry at me for moving slower? And that's an insecurity I never really had in my head. I didn't really have in my head before, because I was just so comfortable with being in the back of the pack that it's like, it's not going to motivate me to move faster. Like, I'm just going to say that off the bat. It's not going to motivate me to move faster, but I don't look forward to a possibility that runners might curse me out and say, can you move out the way? And even when I stand on the sidelines and I'm moving my race, I'm scared of being heckled again. You know, so these are different levels of insecurities that come up. When the biggest thing is people are like, well, you did all these marathons, you can't be scared of them anymore. I'm scared every single time, but
Yeah.
the fear looks different, but I pushed through them anyway. So there's that race. I'll be doing the Ted Corbett 15K in December. 2 weeks after New York City Marathon, I'm going to be doing the Philadelphia Half Marathon. I'm really looking forward to that one. I love Philly. Philly's the second home. I don't know what it is. It reminds me of like 90s New York. A little bit of chaos, a little bit of sketchy activity, but they're really good and they mind their business. You know, so like I love that. There will be, I just signed up last night. Just signed up for a 50K. Yes, so this is my redemption race after not being able to show up to Javelina 100 this weekend. It was the Javelina 100, or they say the Jundred, 100K, which is equivalent to 62 miles in the desert. It was just not in the cards this year. My lungs said no, no, no. The coughing and the hacking was like, girl, go ahead and try if you want, because you won't be showing up in New York City. So I told myself, respect my body, make the decisions that, you know, works best for your body and your mind. And I want to be able to go out into the desert and fight tarantulas and all of the crazy things, and maybe hopefully next year. It was a race that I did in 2018. I came in last place, and that was the first time I ever saw myself celebrated being in last place. Everybody deserves to be celebrated. Everybody. So there's that race that I'm going to be doing with Prospect Park Track Club Endurance Fest 50K. And that's going to be, they have a 50K option and a 50 miler. I decided that I was going to be kind to myself. 2 marathons is a lot in a year. And then to push that on with an ultra, I was just like, let's be kind, being that it's going to be December and it's going to be cold and I'm possibly going to be angry at the start. So it has a 15-hour cutoff. Perfect for slow paced people like me, who are just like, listen, I just want to walk this entire thing. If you want to walk the entire thing, it is possible.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I'm just like, who the hell said running has to look a certain way? And then when the new year kicks in, I already have some races I've already signed up for. Particularly when you said Miami, I was like, oh girl, I'm doing the Miami half. So I will be there. I'm trying to sign up for the 5K, but I'm trying to make sure that my funds gonna let me be great. So I'm gonna see until next week, and I might do
Okay,
that
I'm
as a
so
weekend.
excited.
Yes. So look me up when because girl, I'm coming out there. I'm coming
Oh,
out to
yeah,
you.
let's go. Let's go. Let's do stuff.
I love me some Miami. Miami got some good ass food. So I love to travel to different races, not just for the experiences, but the culinarian in me is just like, if I can go to a place that can introduce me to whatever's the signature that's there, sign me up. I don't care how crazy it is. I want to try it at least once, as long as it's not illegal, because I'm not trying to go to jail. I worked at one. Okay, the fun fact about me, I worked at a prison for damn near 2 years. It is not fun, people. Okay, it
No,
is not
no.
fun. Like it is very interesting every time I have someone call me by my maiden last name, and they're like, Miss Richardson, and I'm like, oh my God, he must know me from the jail. And most times they knew me from the jail. So it's like, yeah, so those are like the races that I have set up for the remainder of the year.
I love it. All right. Final question. It's kind of a two-parter. It's just remind us where we can follow you and find more information. And then what are your final words for us?
Oh man, like the Jerry Springer final thoughts. Yes. I love it. Man. Well, you can always find me on social media. You can find me on, well, one, I have a website, I am going to be bringing this blog back into action because this is how a lot of people actually found out about me before the viral moment. It's runningfatchef.com. Don't you dare whisper it. Fat is seasoning. Fat is for the soul. And yes, fat happens to be on your body, but baby, we can shake it, we can mold it, we can make it look all great. Okay, so runningfatchef.com. I also have my Instagram and my TikTok as well as Threads. That's I am L Shauntay. That's IAMLSHAUNTAY. I am L Shauntay, just like my name. Like people are just like, what is your name? It's Latoya Shauntay Snell, just like 3 names, like every serial killer. I don't carry around knives or guns. I just carry these hands. Don't ever ask me to use these hands in the way they're not supposed to. I like to shake people's hands, not put hands around people's throats. Other ways you can find me. Just saying. Just saying. Other way you can find me is actually as Running Fat Chef. You can find me on Facebook as Running Fat Chef. I just hit 30,000 followers over there today. And I was just like, oh, I feel a little tingly inside. The account is big. It's a lot of damn people, but it's not so big where it's like triple digits. 6 digits or whatever.
Yeah.
Instagram, on the other hand, is kind of getting there, which is kind of intimidating as hell. Some people embrace it. I'm just like, oh my God, that means more people that I've been interacting with possibly won't see me anymore, and I won't be able to have these conversations. I'm gonna pray it never gets to that point where I don't get to talk with the people who's been there since day one. Other things I think, yeah, like I mean that's really like where the places you can really find me. You can find me Running Fat Chef on Facebook, as well as Running Fat Chef on Instagram. The culinary side hasn't died for me. I like to make dishes, particularly during these winter months when the race season starts to kind of dip down. I like to make soups and food, and I like to do tutorials and teach people what I actually went to school for, which is culinary arts. I'm not going to make a photography page. I'm sorry, y'all. But you might see.
Got a lot. You got a lot right now.
I got a lot going on, man. I'm wearing all these hats. Like what I need is a nap. Okay.
Yes.
A nap. But yes, let's offer this Gary Springer final thought here. After I done rambled my mouth off, it's like the ADHD is really showing right now because I talked about 6 different topics and then come back.
But it all ties together. It's good.
I'm probably to say, that there's nothing more beautiful than being you. But it is a brave act to be you, especially when the world is demanding for you to show up as somebody else. Instead of trying to wear somebody else's costume of who they want you to be, how they think that you're supposed to be, the way that you're supposed to sound, try trying on yourself. Experiment with it, grow with it, be artistic in it, be as plain as you want to with it. Whatever you do, honor who you are, what your voice is, and define it and fine tune it to the best of your ability, not to everybody else's. Because I promise that when you figure out who you are, what you're supposed to sound like, what you're supposed to look like, and how you're supposed to feel, other people are going to feel that, and it's going to be contagious. There is no better packaging than the way that you are. And you don't have to be in a certain size to do that. You don't have to wear a certain accessory to do that. Just be you. It's the bravest thing that you can ever do for yourself. That is the true legacy.
I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you
for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.